Welcome to How to Build Stunning Data Science Web Applications in Python with Taipy. I'd like to introduce our speakers, the founder of Taipy, Vincent Gosselin, and Gosselin Jacta. At the end, we'll have a short Q&A session.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So let's get started. So today we'll talk about a Python package called Taipy. Taipy is like 10 months old. We are a little bit different from the usual startup. In other words, we are former IBMers. We were building large application, AI application mostly for large companies. And we decided a few years back to move everything into Python. Then we realized there were some issues with Python, and hence the creation of Taipy. So where we come from is really applications where, of course, you have data scientists and so on, but you also have people using the algorithm from the end user point of view. So that's why we use this term also, decision support system. So in other words, Taipy has been designed really for a very wide range of applications. So I'll talk to you about AI and so on, but it can be used for dashboarding all the way to more complex systems, including AI, operation research, mathematical optimization, simulation, and so on. So that's also the objective of Taipy. One thing, again, that we take into account is the need of end users. Too often we hear about the data scientists. There are a lot of stuff for data scientists, but you need to develop often applications for end users. This may explain also why Python is also having such a low rate of conversion from pilot to full app. We know a lot of applications that have been started as a Python pilot and being rewritten completely into other languages. This is not sustainable. You absolutely need to go the full circle here. And that requires to go beyond only the realm of the data scientist and to think also in terms of end users. So that's also something that we bring here with Taipy. So these are some of the data that you can get from Gartner. So 85% of the Python pilots stay pilots. They don't, and there are many reasons for it. It's mainly because first there is no ROI. The pilot. Yep. Oh yes, sorry. Thank you. You didn't miss much. That's what you missed, I guess. And Florian was the. Why didn't you say anything? We'll give you a free license. It's open source anyway. It's open source. Okay, so that I talked about. That's where we are right now. So again, that's the reason for having created Taipy. Taipy was also created with large company right from the start. So the software has been used by McDonald's, companies like Samsung, like large retailers. So we didn't want to build a product without having end users and people, data scientists, to participate to the creation. So this is one of the applications here showing also the interest of developing with a product like ours. So this is an IT department in one of the largest retailers in Europe. And their option was actually to go for a tender for 600K to develop a forecast for their cash flow. So it's the end users were the CFO and the treasurers for this company. So it was costing them 600K, 4 people, 8 months to get their first release. The very same thing was developed for 60K, 1.5 person. Okay, so in 2 months. So basically, cost-wise, it's a factor 10. That's also one of the objectives that you want to achieve with this kind of package. So Taipy, we call it a platform because it covers two elements, the graphical side and the backend side. And you will see, also I will talk about the roadmap, you will see also in the future these two will come together. This is typically Python package, you do pip install Taipy and you've got Taipy installed in a few seconds. So maybe a little bit more about why again we came into developing a front end, so many front end offer, and also the back end and the pipeline thing. So on the front end, we really look at what was available. So you've got a lot of great widget libraries, Matplotlib, Altair, Seaborn, Bokeh, and so on and so forth. But these are widgets. Okay, it doesn't make a full application, multi-user, highly interactive, multi-page, and so on and so forth. So that was not what we wanted. Of course, you can always build with Plotly, Plotly Dash, tkinter, all of this, but you need to be a specialist, a GUI specialist, or a JavaScript specialist. We did not want that. We want Taipy to be usable by any data scientist, any Python developer, to have a learning curve which is very fast. At the same time, we want power. We want the capability to customize and to have good performance. There's one tool we looked at called Streamlit, but we failed miserably on real application. This is a tool, again, fantastic for pilots, but cannot scope. One thing we wanted also for Taipy was really to be able to run on Python scripts, I mean, normal Python code, basically, as well as notebooks. So you will see, we are going to show you at the end, I think we'll use Colab, a full-blown application from Python notebooks. So the first time you will see that. This doesn't exist really at the moment. Okay, we are the only one to do that. On the backend side, so again, we looked at what was available, and we saw a whole range of offers which were either great but complex, a big learning curve, and a lot of missing features that we thought were really needed in the context of the application I talked to you about. So it's not about, again, short learning curve. I don't want people to learn for years a particular tool to become specialists. You must be able to design pipeline easily and execute them easily without, within a few hours. We look at things like what-if analysis, scenario management. We didn't find anything available. Versioning, there was a lot of things about versioning. You can version your code, your ML model, your data lineage, and so on. But there's nothing really for pipelines. So we go into this. We'll go into cycles. So cycles are, when you work for McDonald's, for instance, every week they need to produce for every single store a forecast, a sales forecast, different forecasts for different products. So there's a weekly cycle here. Some other customers might be on a monthly basis in other industries, or hourly. So you have this kind of cycle. So you need to be able to run your experiment, or your runs, your executions, and to basically sort them by time buckets like this. Okay? And to say, within that week, this is the official scenario. So all the scenario management was also not really available anywhere. All of this is to explain that why we created Taipy Core. So I'll stop it here. I will hand over to Florian, who will show you some code. So be careful when we mention the word low code. It's always ambiguous. Okay, it's not really low code to the point where most Python developers will run away. You have to code, but it's important that you see at which level. So this is what we're going to show you. And after that, I'll come back and I will show you some of the roadmap that we have and the new products around Taipy that we will be launching soon. So we'll start with Taipy GUI first.
Yes. So I'm just here showing a demo that we have of Taipy just to show you what you can do with Taipy. So you can see all the demos that we have on our website. You have, like, it's open source, so you can just go also on GitHub and you will have all these demos. So this is a demo that is using Taipy GUI, so the front end, creating visual elements. There's also Taipy Core with all the pipelines, so pipeline management and so on. So here, just to explain to you, we have a problem. We want to minimize the cost of like production, kind of. So we have a lot of constraints that we can move to create different models to solve different problems, and then everything we can see it here on this interface. So here is like 3 solutions that we have of our problem. We can change these different solutions to see what is the best solution for our problem with different constraints, changing the graph, and so on. So just to show you how interactive it is, how like some kind of application you can create with Taipy. So now that you see how they look like, I'm just going to go to the code and how you can create your first application with Taipy. So I'm just going here, and I will start with Taipy GUI. So Taipy is 2 components, like Vincent said. We have Taipy GUI for all the front end, Taipy Core for all the pipelines, but normally you just use Taipy as a whole, so you just pick install Taipy and you will be able to use it. And this is a article that I have created to show you how you can create the first application. So I have pip install Taipy, and I'm just importing now the GUI element. And in this GUI, I'm going to put a string in it. So this string will have this Markdown syntax, so Markdown here. So the goal is to just type or like text. For example, Taipy demo here will be title in our web page and so on. So I can also do this. Okay. So this is really so I have one line that is important, this string here, and then I'm going to put this page into my GUI and run it. So let's do that. I'm just going to run my GUI, and we will see our web page how it is created. It's running, and now I have a page here. So I'm just going to put it here, and okay. So I have just my page, Markdown, Taipy demo. Taipy demo is the title, demo is in italics, so this is the Markdown syntax. So obviously it's not really interesting here, because I cannot really do anything on my web page. So I'm just going to create Taipy visual element. So what we say normally is Taipy GUI is the non-mounted version of Markdown. So we're just going to add to this Markdown syntax Taipy visual elements. And they always have the same syntax. So for example, if I want to show my value here, which is 10, like a pattern object, I'm just going to add this syntax that you see here. So inferior than pipe, my pattern variable, what I want to see or what I want to display, to modify and so on. And then the name of my visual element, what I want to show. Here will be text. So I just want to show text like 10 here. So I'm just going to save it, and I'm going to show you the result. So we'll normally have value equals 10, like this, so value 10. Nice. But of course here I cannot really modify anything yet. So this is the next step I'm going to show you. So we are going now to create a slider. So this slider is also going to modify my value. So this is my Python variable again, and this is the element name, this element that I'm going to use. Slider, I'm just going to add it, and then refresh, and we will have our slider just next to this. So the slider with the text. And what is really interesting with Taipy is that if I'm going to change my slider, it's also going to change my text. So there's this automatic binding between 2 visual elements. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to write callbacks and so on. Taipy will take care of this automatic binding between elements. So I'm just changing this, it's changing my text automatically. So next, well, what we want normally to have is like charts, like we want to visualize some data. So I'm just going to create some data. So I'm just going to take a function here, a very simple function that will create a cosine list. So maybe I can do, yeah. So this function will create like a list of cosine that will decay at a time. So just to show some data, and I will put it into a Python object data. Now I want to show it on my GUI. So what I have to do is create a visual element. So like this. So data, then chart. Also, you see that I have some auto-completion like this. So this is Taipy Studio. This is a VS Code extension that we have created for Taipy. That will just tell you what like values you can have for your visual element. So this here, what you see is all the visual elements that we have. So button, chart, dialog, expandable, and so on and so on. Here I want a chart to display it, and then I do this. So I have my data in a chart. I'm just going to refresh, and we'll have it here. So we have this cosine that we declare at the time. It's also interactive, so I can zoom in, zoom out. If you know Plotly, in fact, we are based on Plotly for the chart. So you have all the types of Plotly. If I can show you like under documentation, so you can go here. Here for visual elements. So these are all the visual elements that we have. So button, input, sliders, so a lot of things. And if I go to the chart, you have like all the details, all the examples that you need to create all these charts. So bar charts, line charts, field areas, pie charts, and so on and so on. So with everything that you need to know. So I'm going to come back here. So I have my charts, I have my data, but for now we don't have really something that is really interactive. We just have this text that is being changed by my slider. Maybe it would be great if I'm changing this slider, it's also going to change my charts. So let's do this. I'm going to create a callback. So I'm going to say unchanged equals to some function that I have not written yet. So it tells me that I haven't created my function, so I'm going to create the function here, which is called like this. So what Taipy will do here, so I have my slider, I have this parameter unchanged. What it means that when I'm going to change my value of my slider, it's going to call this function that I have not created yet directly. So I'm changing my slider, it's going to call the function, and I have to implement the logic behind it. The parameter that is passed to this function is the state. Taipy is multi-user by design, so it means that you have different states for different users in order to differentiate. So now I'm going to change the state of my data depending on the state of my value. So changing my data depending on the slider. So this is what you see here. State.data equals compute data, state.value. And like this, you have created a callback on a slider that is going to change your chart dynamically. So doing this, you have a slider, and I'm changing my slider here. It's going to call this function. Then going to change the data based on this. So if you think it's a bit too complex for you, well, in fact, you can just delete everything here. And if you know a bit about like the f-string format, well, this is kind of the same thing. You can put actual Python expression into your visual element. So I'm just going to put directly this function with value in it, and now I don't have to write callbacks anymore. Just doing this will work. What happens is that Taipy will know that you have changed your slider, so your value, and it will recalculate the text, but also this Python expression with compute data. And you have the same behavior. So this is why we say it is low code, so you don't have to write a lot of things. The callbacks with just like 20 lines, I've created an application with the slider, the text, and a chart that is dynamically changed by my slider. So this is for Taipy GUI. You have this kind of syntax, and then you can create a bigger application like I've shown you with this prediction problem. And it's always the same syntax with this visual element. Also, I'm going to just show you a bit about the feature that we have in Taipy, which is called the decimator. So the decimator is for large data. Sometimes you want to show millions of points, like you have data of millions of points, but you can't really show it in a front-end application like this. So what? So what you will do is you will use the decimator. So the decimator is like a property that you put on the chart in order to filter the data, in order to like least modify the shape of the curve. So for example, if I have 10 minus points for a line chart, I want to just be able to see it in my GUI. Well, I'm going to create a decimator that will decimate my points. This is not this application. Oh, no, because I have decimator. Oh. and here. So I'm going to filter the data to just show like few points, but you will be able to show it in an intelligent way. So this is like the data without decimator. Obviously, there's like not millions of points because I will not be able to see it here. And this is with the decimator. So you see, I have few points, but I have my shape of my curve preserved, this conserved. But also, when you're going to zoom in on your curve, we're going to repopulate the points. So now you can use like big data, like large data, into your application using the decimator, for example. So we'll have a lot of features like this in Taipy to make it able to handle like large data and things like that.
So this example, for instance, the decimator has been set to 500 points. So it removes all the points that least modify the shape of the curve. And when you zoom, it still populates it to get 500 points. Zoom again, you still have 500 points. Okay. And it works also with cluster graphs, so it's not only for time series. So you can use it across that. Just to add to the graphics also, because performance is a very important thing. And we are not covering everything here. I'll give you some example. Sometimes you have a long run, a long execution. You don't want to be stuck with your graphics waiting for the run. So you have to have the capability to say, no, this is a synchronous call or asynchronous. When it's asynchronous, then you can go about your graphics and wait for the long run to finish. Okay, so you've got all of these capabilities to tune and to look at performance and having nice behaviors. Okay, so this is what we bring also at Taipy, but we cannot cover everything. There's also the refreshing rate. Sometimes if you work with a platform like Colab and you get the graphics locally on your machine, then you have a refresh rate which needs to be customized because it's not local to your machine. So you get a lot of stuff like that to make it really nice experience for the data scientist, but and also for the end user.
Yes. So what I've shown to you is Taipy GUI. So just how you can create an interface. But what we want to do with Taipy is to be able to create pilots, but also like applications, full applications with all the like data. Like for example, if you are in an AI environment, you maybe want to do like some training, some testing, evaluation, also in your application. So this is why we also provide Taipy Core in order for you to manage pipelines, manage your data easily with Taipy. What you see here is Taipy Core. We have here just an ML pipeline with some cleaning data. So we clean the data, we do some prediction, evaluation. And in fact, this is not just a visualizer of my pipeline. This is Taipy Studio, so a VS Code extension that we have created in order to visualize the pipeline, but also to edit it. So I can go here and like change my details of my pipeline. But before that, I'm just going to make you just to explain to you what it is. So what you see here, like the blue boxes, are what we call data nodes. So this is pointer to all data. For example, here the initial dataset is a CSV, in fact. So if I go to the details, you will be able to see it. So it's a CSV with some path. So just a pointer to my data. This initial dataset could also have been like a SQL, a Mongo, an Excel, a JSON, anything. We just point to the data and we will be able to use it in Taipy. So this is a CSV, and then we're going to use this CSV in some task. So the orange boxes are tasks. This is just the translation of Python functions into Taipy. So this, in fact, we see the details again, we have inputs, outputs, but the function that I'm using is in fact a Python function that I've created. So just this function, clean data, which is here. So I am creating this pipeline with my data node, so with CSV or JSON or anything, and then so with these different types of data sources, and then doing some tasks on it. And like this, you can create your task, your data nodes, your pipelines, and then you will be able to use it in your Python code. Because all of this, what you see, is just configuration. I'm just configuring my data, I'm just configuring my pipelines, and then I will be able to use it. It's kind of a class in Python. Then you are going to create instances of this class.
But maybe one thing to add on the data node, just to make sure, it's not only data coming from the outside. It could be like here, for instance, you notice you've got day, that's actually a date. Okay, so that's a Python object. So it could come from the graphics or something else somewhere else. Okay, so it goes beyond just data from the outside. Again, we're thinking of, and in this particular example, this is the parameter we'll be changing. We'll do different runs where Florian will be doing some variation by changing the date. So in this particular example, that's the date from which we want to predict. Okay? So data node goes, it's anything that can be an input or an output to a task, to a Java function, basically. Sorry, a Python function.
So all this configuration that you have done, you can do it graphically with Taipy Studio, or you can do it with just Python. So it can also be a way to do it if you have like a for loop, you have like a lot of pipelines, you can do it with Python. But it will be the same way, so you have data nodes with CSV here, a path. Also, this is a scope, so it's like a Taipy concept. It just means that this data node here, initial dataset, will be shared by every pipelines, every scenario. So a scenario is just a bunch of pipelines. So it will be shared by everything. And for example, the day, so the day of prediction, the one that we're going to change between each run, will have like no scope. The default is scenario. So I'm going to create an instance of this configuration, and each scenario will have a different date of prediction. So just a way to manage how we share data between different pipelines, different scenarios. So you have lots of features like this, but I'm going just to go to domain.py and explain what it does. I'm importing this configuration that I've done, because in fact, it's like this visualization is just a tonal file. In fact, behind it is something like this. Then we're just going to interact with it with this graphical editor. So I'm importing this configuration that I've done with this scenario, so this pipeline, and then I'm going to be able to create instances of this configuration. So this is what I'm doing here. I have create scenario based on this configuration, so an instance of this configuration with some name, and then you will be able to change your data node like this. So if I want to change my day of prediction, what I would do is scenario.day, my data node that I want to change, .write my date, my new date. And this syntax is always the same. So if you have like a SQL, CSV, Excel, like data, you will also have like scenario.datanode.write. So it really simplifies the way you interact with your data with Taipy. And then when I've changed my day, I'm just going to submit my scenario, which just means that I'm going to run all of my pipelines, all of my tasks. And if it can be run in parallel, it will be run in parallel to make it really more efficient, less resources and less time to execute it.
Yeah, so of course there are some subtleties here. When you're in development mode, the last thing you want is to run your pipeline in parallel. You want to follow what the pipeline executes. So there are different modes of working. When in development, it will be one task at a time so that you can follow them. When you start to move into staging or deep production, then you want to have parallelism if it can be achieved.
So here in this function, I have changed my scenario, I have submitted it. And so this is what happens here. I'm just creating my scenario and submit it using this function that I've shown you. And if I want to read my data node, how can I do it? Well, it's almost the same thing. I have scenario.mypipeline.mydatanode.read. And I'm reading the information that is in my data node. So again, it can be CSV and Excel and SQL and MongoDB, anything. You can read this information like this, just with this syntax. It doesn't change. Here what you see is just to, for example, I have a for loop that will just create 10 scenarios for me automatically. Normally you would do it with Taipy GUI, so you have this interface where you change your parameters, then you click on new scenario, you click on submit, and so on. So it will be done like graphically. So here I'm just going to show you.
So the create here creates the scenario and executes it.
Yeah. And then you have a lot of Python Taipy functions in order to navigate your data nodes, your scenarios, to really do a lot of things to manipulate what you have done with Taipy. So this function here is just going to get all of my scenarios that I've created. So all of my scenarios that I've created, it will put it in a list, and then I'm going to just read the evaluation, so just the results of my pipeline. And at the end, I just have the Taipy GUI little application to show the different metrics. So I'm going to execute it, and we will see what happens. So it's creating all of my scenarios here. So 10 scenarios. And then it's going to create my Taipy GUI application, will show my metrics in advance. So very easy to integrate Taipy GUI here. But what I wanted to show, that is hidden in the logs, is that for my first scenario, so this is my first scenario. I have three tasks. I have the clean, the predict, and evaluate. Okay. So for my cleaning, so what you see here is my first scenario and the jobs related to this task. So the clean data is being completed, the predicting is being completed, and evaluation also completed. And if I go to my second scenario that I have created and submitted, you will see that the clean data here is being skipped, which means that Taipy will not do your task, it will just skip your task. But the other one will be completed. So why? Well, if we go here, we see that what I have changed between all of my scenarios is the date of prediction. I haven't changed the initial data set. So if I create like a lot of scenarios and I submit it, this function will always give me the same result. Clean data set, and so on and so on. So it's not really useful and it takes a lot of resources for nothing. So I'm just going to skip this task. So Taipy can do it automatically if you have said that this task can be skippable. So you just go here. Skippable equals to true, and if it's true, you can skip this step if it's not really useful to do it again and again and again for each scenario. So we have a lot of features like this to make it more efficient to use Taipy Core. So it can be run in parallel. You have this coupling mechanism. You have this keepability also mechanism in Taipy Core. So you use Taipy GUI, use Taipy Core, you put them together, you get full applications that are efficient, powerful, that can be put in production. Do we have time to?
Yeah, so one thing just to finish on the pipelines, we have also a versioning tool. So for instance, we have customers again that have generated hundreds, if not thousands of scenarios over time. And suddenly your pipeline it's modified. You have a new data source, a new parameter, and you can't see or you can't do anything with the past scenarios. So everybody talks about machine learning models that are basically versioned, tool like MLflow, code versioning, data lineage. How about the most important thing, pipelines? Nothing. Okay, so that's a bit of a problem. So we address that with Taipy. You have this capability to have different versions, and also to migrate past runs to still work with your new pipelines. Okay, so this is something also that is not very sexy to show, by the way, but very useful, very important. So what I'll do now, I'll show you quickly the roadmap we have, and also I'll try to run the graphical interface built by Taipy with Taipy and Colab. Let's see. Okay.
It's back.
No, not good. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to this presentation. So the next release, important release for Taipy will be in June. On the graphical side, I'm starting with the graphics. We have a GUI preview capability, like a previewer. So while you are designing and building your your pages, basically using extended Markdown, you will see the layout appear while you're coding, okay, in parallel. Okay, so that's something that will be quite interesting. We have better tables. All our tables are editable and they're quite nice, but we wanted to go one step further with double indexing, pivoting, and all this. So that will be part of the next release. We have a default style. I mean, there are a lot of people like me, I guess, who don't like to touch and do anything related with CSS stuff. So we have provided some style sheets by default, and you can customize it very easily. That's already available, by the way. That's part of the current release. Taipy Core. So this is where we will bring the GUI and the core together, where we will provide graphical components to visualize a scenario with its data node, with its task, so you'll be able to query the data itself. So all of this will come like a graphical component. So that will potentially make the development even faster. And we are launching Taipy Cloud next week. So for those of you interested, that will be free. So you'll be able to basically upload your application, choose a machine. So we have some example of what it will look like. So you can choose which machine. Of course, we will not provide you with super duper machines over there, but you'll be able to run your Taipy application over there. You will zip your files, and you will be able to deploy it with the capability to look at the usage of your machines. Okay. So that's on the offer. And the last thing I want to show you, yeah, just before I go, we have a repo, so have a look and contribute if you want. Give us a star if you really want. The thing I will show you now is collab. So what I've done here, I've already loaded basically I've installed transformers, Taipy, and NGRock. So I'll talk about NGRock later, but Taipy we need it here, and transformers because we're using some Hugging Face model over there. So once we have done that, we have loaded the model, we are going to run the first page. So we have built the first Taipy page. Okay, so it's being loaded. Now there is a second page that has been developed in Taipy GUI. And then you can see here, the last cell is actually the root page, which is the page you will be landing. It's made of two components. The first page I've uploaded and the second page that's uploaded earlier. Okay, and I'm going to run this on a remote platform. I mean, it's not running on Jupyter notebooks here, it's running on a remote platform. Okay, I'm running this. Okay, I'm going to click on this. Goes to insights. Okay, so it's redirecting basically you have a URL that shows the graphics of that remote platform, here Collab, and you have access to your graphics, multiple page, here, and you can play with it. So here, it's just a sentiment analysis thing. So you can analyze it, and you will see that it's working. You can load the text and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can really have a multi-page, fairly sophisticated graphic from a notebook platform. Okay?
Okay.
That's all.